Good morning guys, welcome back. My name is Justin from Aquaponics, and today we're continuing the hydroponics versus aquaponics trial. I'm so excited to get this going, but before we do, let me just quickly show you the system that we're working with. So what you'll see here is my hydroponic system. It's made up of 4 rows of NFT. That stands for nutrient film technique. Now with my NFT system, it's a great use of space, and it's all powered by this 100-liter water reservoir. Now inside this water reservoir, I only have one pump. The pump that we're using here is a DCP 5000, and it's only 40 watts of power. So all of this growth is literally powered by only 40 watts. That's almost nothing. So we'll come back to this water reservoir just now, but that pump basically pumps my water up to the top, where it runs down these nutrient film technique channels, comes out here and is returned back to the water reservoir. Very, very simple. All I need to do is add nutrients to start this process. As you can see, what I'm going to be doing is continuing to transplant. Now I've started here transplanting my lettuce. I still have some to go. Now for the purpose of this trial, we're going to be growing exactly the same number of plants in the 2 systems. So you guys are going to be watching the other plants grow, the spring onions, the basil and the likes, but we're going to be focusing it on this section. Now when it comes to the planting of my plants, obviously I have to make sure that there is sufficient water flow at the bottom of my gutters before I transplant. One of the biggest risks with NFT, power failure. Power goes off, these plants within 20 minutes are going to start to struggle. So once everything's working, my water's flowing nicely, I can then move into the transplanting process. Now as you will see, here's my seedling tray. Inside my seedling tray, I have a potting mix, mostly peat and a bit of vermiculite. Why peat and vermiculite? Well, what you'll see is the water retention of my peat keeps that seedling well fed. The vermiculite keeps it well aerated. Now very simply, all I'm using is a 50mm net pot, and I'm going to put the plugs into these pots into the system. Now the key thing with the whole transplanting process, you have to be very gentle. So I hold the seedling quite low down to pull out that plug, and I literally put the plug into the pot. Very, very easy. So I'm going to do a few here, being as gentle as possible. Remember, these seedlings are only about 3 weeks old, so they're very, very fragile. These pots very simply get put in, and the bottom of that plant is just touching the water. Now it's important to note I haven't added any nutrients yet, because I want to show you the exact nutrients we're using in this process. So let's finish up this transplanting. Now the importance of doing your own seedlings. Why do we not just buy seedlings? Well, the main reason that we do our own seedlings is because we're then in control of the quality. You see, if I'm buying seedlings in, very often inside the mix is a number of added chemicals that help that plant grow quickly. Now unfortunately, when that plant changes environment, what happens is it goes through a lot of shock. And that I like to avoid by doing my seedlings myself, making sure I get my germination right, and that process is going to help me grow a much healthier plant. You'll also notice these holes have a spacing of about 15 centimeters. Important to take note, depending on the size of the crop you're growing, is that the wider the space, pretty much the bigger the crop. Now in this case, the lettuce that we're growing only needs about 15 centimeter spacing. If it gets overcrowded, we'll find out. The other thing you'll notice, I'm doing this quite early in the morning. Really important to take note. As the day gets on, especially now that it's summer, it's going to get hot. And whenever I'm moving plants or transplanting them, Ideally, I want to do it when it's the coolest, hence why I'm doing this early in the morning. All right, there we go, guys. Okay, so now we've planted this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seedlings per row. 10, 20, 40, 60. Put in the comments below how long you think it's going to take for these plants to be on my dinner table. Right, seedlings planted. The rest of these seedlings, I'm just going to put them back into the water to keep them nice and fresh, because what I'm going to be doing is obviously using exactly the same seedlings for the aquaponics. Planted at the same time, same variety, same environment. Remember, the only thing we're changing is pure hydroponics. We need chemicals. Now what you'll see here are the standard things any hydroponic farmer is going to have in their cupboards. We've got calcium sulfate, Shaman Multi-P. Now, this is pretty much your all-in-one mix. As you can see, it's got a wide range of nutrients, but note that often one nutrient is missing from a multi-mix. Now, that's why you often have 2 nutrients needed. What do you think that nutrient that's missing is? You're right, calcium. Now, with calcium, here we go. It comes in a few forms. It either comes in a sulfate form or a nitrate form. Now, personally, I prefer to use the nitrate form because it helps to boost those nitrates. Remember, the nitrates is the key macronutrient required for plant growth. It's equivalent of protein in humans. So I go for the calcium nitrate, but I will keep an eye on it to make sure that the nitrates don't go too high. I've got a bit of Epsom salts, really good for promoting photosynthesis, a bit of extra iron, iron's key, as well as acid. Now here I've got nitric acid. Why would I have acid? Because pH is so important. Remember, in hydroponics, I want my pH to be run at 5.5. At that pH, my plants are having access to the most nutrients. So I've got access to some acid here, but handle with care, please. And obviously my trusty test meter. I'm going to be measuring my EC, electrical conductivity, and that's the magic number that's going to tell me the amount of nutrients that are in my system. So the first nutrient that I'm starting with is the Shaman Multi 212. Now this nutrient mix, the dosing requirements is about between 25 and 50 grams per 100 liters. Now the water reservoir that we've got is 100 liters, thereabouts. So I'm going to start at about 25 grams, but most importantly, I'm going to measure the EC. Once my EC gets to about 1.5, I'm happy. I'm going to leave it there. It's given me an indication that I've got sufficient nutrients in the system. Hello. All right. One thing you would have noticed is from the last video, we've turned the system around. Now, the reason we've done that is in the original positioning, it got quite hot, and I thought, wow, that's a bit unfair to put the system where it gets too warm. Unfair advantage for my aquaponics. So we've put it in the center of the greenhouse where we get the most airflow and my temperatures are most consistent. So what I'm going to do is get my pH meter, my EC meter into the system so we can start to measure the nutrient levels. Okay, so the first things that you can see here, now my screen is a bit cracked, unfortunately that's farm work, but there's a few very important measures. The first, my pH is sitting on about 7.2. I need to bring that down. My water temperature, 21.7, absolutely perfect. And here, this 464 is in nanos. That means I've got an EC of half. So I'm looking to lift that by about 1. So I'm going to put that there and keep an eye on it. while I start to do my dosing. Now, if you have a look here, my general mix has all the nutrients pre-mixed. So you'll see here I've got potassium, I've got some iron, I've got some magnesium. It's all in here, as well as my nitrates. So what I'm going to do is sprinkle approximately 25. Remember, I'm starting up my system, so I have no nutrients in here. I need to make sure that I mix it nice and well. Already, look at my EC going up, guys. My EC is almost at 1. What does that mean? I've almost got enough nutrients mixed in there. Let's keep going. So sometimes you find the nutrients does settle at the bottom, so you can mix it in a bucket first. Try and get as well mixed as you can before adding it. But this is a very small bucket, so this reservoir for me, I'm quite comfortable adding the nutrients and mixing it myself. Excellent, have a look at that. My EC is at just under 1.5 or 1,400. That's a great indication that I've got sufficient nutrition in there. I'm just going to add a little bit more, you know, no harm in a little bit extra, but please try not to go above 2. Okay, one last mix. What's also interesting is you'll notice that my pH has now dropped. That's why I did not adjust my pH first. When adding these nutrients, sometimes they're slightly acidic, and that is going to naturally cause my pH to come down. Now my EC there is sitting at 1.9. By the time it's circulated through the plants and it's well mixed, it's going to drop back to about 1.5. But that's what we're going to keep a close eye on every day to make sure that there's sufficient nutrition. Now with my pH at 6.8, what do I need to do? I want to drop that to 5.5. So let me go grab that acid and we'll be right back. Okay, so what you'll see with this bottle is it's got this little reservoir here that I'm going to use to put my acid in. Now, very important, please do not let this acid touch your hands. Little bit at a time, easy does it. All right, now we can give that a good mix. pH is starting to come down. Now it's at 6.7. Remember, 5.5 is my ideal pH for hydroponics. pH is quite sensitive, so give it at least 30 seconds before adding more acid. The last thing you want to do is shock your plants by a massive drop in pH. Remember, a drop of more than 1 in pH is going to stress my plants out. So my pH has come down to 6.2. I'm just going to wait until this stabilizes so I know for sure that my pH is exactly where I want it to be. And as I mentioned earlier, the pH basically, it's the alkalinity or the acidity of a water base. Now, plants naturally love slightly acidic inerts, or to be in a slightly acidic base. And the reason for that is because the nutrient absorption, it can absorb nutrients the easiest at a lower pH. Now in aquaponics, we work with slightly different pHs. I'll deal with that on the aquaponic side. But what's key here is that I just get this down a little bit more, just so that we're going to give these plants the best chance and I don't waste this nutrient mix. Remember, nutrients is your most expensive element in hydroponics, so you don't want to add more than you need to. Right, there we go. My pH, it's now come down to 5.8. It's going to drop a little bit more, 5.7. I'm almost on the money, 5.3. I'm going to stop adding my acid right there, and I'm going to let this system stabilize, and we're obviously going to keep a close eye on that each day. All right, guys, there we have it. My hydroponic system is set up. It's ready to go. Now the question is, which is going to do better? The pure hydroponics or the aquaponics? Well, we won't know until we get my aquaponic system up and running. Okay, close it up so my dogs don't drink that water. Protect that nutrient, reduce the evaporation, and make sure every single day this reservoir doesn't dry up. Remember, if water stops flowing, if electricity stops, my plants will go into shock in a matter of 10-15 minutes. All right, guys, so hydroponics has been nicely set up on that side of my my tunnel. This is my aquaponic system. Now, very simply, it runs almost the same as the hydro, except what you will see here is I have a water inlet. Now, this water inlet coming to my NFT is being pumped straight from the end of my deep water culture. So what I'm pumping in here is extremely high nutrient organic water. Now, as I mentioned, I added quite a lot of synthetics into my hydroponics. I'm going to tell you what we need to do on the aquaponics, but first of all, let's get the rest of the system planted out so that the plants have as equal time in both systems, so we can see which does better. I'm also using 50 ml net pots, same as on the hydroponic side, and exactly the same seedling tray. So as I was showing you earlier, easy does it, nice and gentle with the transplanting. I don't want to damage those leaves. The plants need them to photosynthesize. And the roots, essential. Now I'll make another video at some point to show you exactly how we do our seedlings, how we germinate them, to get them to this point where they make what we call a nice plug for aquaponic use. Almost there. Now, you might be wondering, do we offer training courses? Yes, we do. Every month, on site here at our farm, we run a series of courses, everything from absolute basics all the way through to advanced commercial production. If you want to join us, get in touch with us, details on the website, and we'll help you fast track your way into growing success. Rightio, last one going in. Okay, so now last tip with NFTs. As I mentioned before, my water inlet where it's coming in over here, what I've got is little sprouts. I need to make sure that these sprouts don't get blocked up, otherwise that is going to restrict the water flow to my plants. So keep a close eye on that. All right, now what nutrients do I add in aquaponics? So there's three key nutrients that we focus on. iron, potassium, and calcium. Now the reason for that is often we don't get enough. Now I tested the iron this morning in my aquaponics. Currently it's at 0.1. Too low. I need to get that up ideally to about 1. That's the number you're looking for. You use a simple test kit which is available in our store. Again, in a later video I'm going to show you how we do all those water quality tests. But the iron is the only thing I'm going to add right now, and as the series goes on we'll keep a close eye on the potassium and the calcium levels and add as and when necessary. So I'm going to put the rest of my seedlings back into the water. There we go, just so they don't dry out. And what you'll see here is iron chelate. Now iron comes in quite a number of forms, but my preferred iron is what we call FeDTPa. It seems to have the least impact on the fish, and the plants absolutely love it. So where do we add the iron? Well, what you'll see, I've got a much bigger aquaponic system running here. So I'm not just adding the iron just for these plants. I need to add it for everything else that is growing. Now what you'll see is we've built very, very simple dosing buckets. Now these dosing buckets basically help to slowly release any nutrients into the system so that I don't put it in too quickly. Now very simply, here's my iron. I'm going to add about half of this bag, and tomorrow when we retest we'll see if our iron is where it needs to be. As mentioned, give it a good mix, stir up, and you'll see the color. It's like a nice orange coming out into my aquaponic system, and that is what the plants are desperately needing. Even if I look at some of my plants in the system, I can see slight iron deficiency coming in, shown by that yellowing along the veins. But watch, by tomorrow those plants will be nice and green again. There we have it. Set up aquaponics and hydroponics in parallel. Now the clock starts ticking. Make sure you subscribe, notifies turned on, so you can stay up to date as we keep posting our progress on this journey. There's nowhere to hide here, and I really hope you've enjoyed it. Leave the comments in below. If you want us to include anything, if you have any questions about why we've done something, please comment. We will personally get back to you on those questions. Have a fantastic day. Stay safe.